Alright, even though I've been complaining that I'm getting bored of oud and rose or rose oud combo fragrances, especially just oud fragrances, I've got many people requesting me to do an updated oud rose or rose oud fragrances list. So I thought I'd put together a list of fragrances that are fairly new, combining rose and oud, and it's a rank list, and also ending with some of the staples in the world of niche perfumery and fragrances that combine rose and oud. And then after the outro, a collection of bonus, less expensive, fragrances as well. So if you like the idea of rose and oud, and you want to discover some new fragrances that feature these notes together, and also hear about the most popular in the niche world and some budget options, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. We're talking about rose and oud today. Are you bored of this combo? There's a lot of fragrances out there that combine these two notes. I think they do work really wonderfully together. So that's the reason why people keep making them. There's a lot of fragrances out there. I first discovered fragrances like Black Oud from Montale, Gold Rose Oud from Montale Terenzi, Oud Silk Mood from Maison Francis Kurkdjian, and then, then I discovered a ton others, and they just keep cranking them out. But there are some fairly newer fragrances here in this list, of course. It's a ranked list, as I said. And then we're ending the video with 3 of the most popular, at least to me, most popular rose oud fragrances that I think that should be highlighted. And of course, we're going to have some bonus cheapies as well. So before I get to the fragrances, just want to let you know that we have Scent Club Kit number 8 that dropped recently, and we are almost sold out of this one. So if you haven't gotten your copy of Scent Club Kit number 8 yet, please do before we run out. This will be the last kit of the year and the last kit for some time. So take advantage of that now, and there's 3 amazing fragrances in there. Vanagloria from Laboratorio Olfativo, Methexis from Manos Guerraquines Parfums, and then also Disco from Zernel Gilly. 3 amazing scents. Get your kit ASAP before we run out. But let's move on to the fragrances. We're starting off with a fairly... It's at the bottom of the list. Remember, this is a ranked list, and I'm putting this at the bottom. It does feature rose, but not so prominently. And for me, this is a fragrance created by Dominique Ropian, but not one of his strongest releases, I think. It's called DEJAN or DEJAN from the house of OMANLUXURY. Are you familiar with this one? This is oud, Cypriol, amber, rosewater, musk, and labdanum. So what I don't like about this one is they're shining a light on the oud and the Cypriol and less on the rose and the musk and the labdanum along with the amber. So it is kind of a bit sour coming when I'm wearing it, and I wanted some sweetness added to it, so it kind of falls flat. So in the end, it's more about the oud and the Cypriol. Cypriol is this very interesting woody aromatic note that smells like a bit of cross between like patchouli, vetiver, some other woods combined together. So it's a very interesting and unusual ingredient or note that's here very prominently against the oud, because I feel like you can trick people by combining fragrances with Cypriol and say they're using oud, and in the end, this is oud and Cypriol. So we have this overdose of this kind of sour woodiness against the amber, rose, and the musk and the labdanum. So I wanted to highlight it. I know there's fans of this out there. It's not necessarily one of my favorites. It's also not very prominent with the rose. And for me, oud by itself kind of gets boring, and this one needed the rose to be amplified further along with some sweetness like vanilla or something in amber, but it just doesn't go there. But still highlighting it here, DEJAN. Let me know if you're a fan of that one. I think if you like less rose, you might dig that one, especially if you're into oud and Cypriol as a prominent note. Then it's getting more rosy, and I think the ranking is going to be all over the place. I'm going to tell you why I put them here. So KAYALI's OUDGASM Rose Oud is the next fragrance. This fragrance came out with the collection of 4 OUDGASM fragrances. Remember, we did a Scent Club kit, and this was the additional sample that was in the kit rather than the decanted bottles, because this fragrance had the worldwide premiere at Harrods. They were selling it there, so it was easier to get in comparison to the rest of the collection. It's definitely a fine oud-rose combo. It's a bit sweet with the vanilla in here. There's also cashmere wood. There's the oud, of course. There's Bulgarian rose, peony, pear, lemon, geranium. For me, this one is not as exciting as other oud rose combo fragrances. That's why it's ranked lower. And also against the other fragrances in the OUDGASM collection, I felt like this was not necessarily my favorite. But sure, it's definitely a great fragrance in that it's combining the oud and rose together. There's some sweetness there, there's some muskiness there, light fruitiness as well, and some citrus and aromatic touches. But in the end, I felt like when you compare them against the rest of the oud rose combo fragrances, I don't think this one is as strong as the others. And again, next to the other OUDGASM fragrances, I prefer tobacco oud, I prefer cafe oud, which is my favorite, and even the vanilla oud is also quite nice next to the rose oud. So rose oud is the next fragrance that I was talking about. And then we've got a fragrance from the house of JAZEEL. This is GHALA, this one right here. So this is a really, really great fragrance. It's ranked low because it's overly animalic. For me, I get the animalics. It's pretty tolerable. And I've had people smell this and they've reacted so negatively to it. And I've also had people smell this that's not necessarily into animalics and they don't even smell or pick up the animalics. So there's something mysterious about this fragrance that some people pick up this really, really strong, almost to the point of fecal animalics in here because of the oud, and some people don't. I get it just like in the middle, you know? I know it's funky, I know it's quite animalic, and also very oudy woody, plus it's got a lot of rose here. It's oud, Indian oud, Turkish rose, incense, ambergris, patchouli, vetiver, sandalwood, and cedar. It comes in the most beautiful, you know, gold colored bottle and has this beautiful seal on the back. But again, if you like something a bit more funky animalic, try that. But if you don't like animalics, I'd stay away. But still, you know, like I said, somebody that I know hates animalics enjoyed the rose in that. They didn't even pick up the animalics. Somebody is very sensitive to animalics also said it was way too animalic for them. So I don't know. It's a very interesting fragrance. For me, like I said, it's just right down the middle. It's animalic, but wearable as well. But I'm putting it there at that spot. Next is going to the house of NISHANE. It's Mana, this one right here. Again, I'm selecting fragrances that I haven't spoken too much about as far as rose and oud goes. So these are fairly newer fragrances and less spoken about on the channel, highlighting it for you guys. This one is lower also because it's not necessarily too rosy. The rose is not a really prominent note. It does have lots of oud. It's also a bit animalic and also a bit musky, featuring suede leather. There's Turkish rose, there's Castoreum, Saffron, Guaiac, Labdanum, sandalwood, musk, oak moss, benzoin, Labdanum, and patchouli. So all of those notes that go into creating an amber Middle Eastern style fragrance are in here. You've got the leather, you've got the oud, you've got the rose. It's all in here. Castoreum, musk to give you this funky animalic quality. But I should say this is not as animalic as the last fragrance, the GHALA from the house of JAZEEL. But still, it is definitely noticeable. You'll pick it up. And also the rose is not as strong. And I feel like when it's a little bit more overdosed with the rose, it should tone down the animalic touches as well, but it doesn't. Sure, it's spicy. Sure, it's very ambery. There's some smoky, resinous touches as well. But in the end, it's the combination of a lot of oud with a little bit of rose. This is Mana from the house of NISHANE. Let me know if you're a fan of that fragrance. A lot of people talk about nefs. And for me, nefs, I don't care for nefs. I don't know why. I don't like it. To me, it smells like citronella. I don't know why. And I don't want to wear citronella. If a fragrance smells like citronella, that's for the garden, to keep the bugs away, not for me to wear, right? But I know there's a lot of fans of nefs. I much prefer Mana over nefs. Alright, next up, going to a house called ADAMO Parfum. This is NUMERO QUATTRO, numero 4, number 4. This is a fragrance house that has these really beautiful bottles, as you can see. Bottles are really nice and classy. If I ever had a fragrance brand, I'd want to have bottles like this. They're really great. For me, it takes me into the direction of the Joker and Harlequin. I don't know why, with the whole DC comics and Gotham and things like that. But I love these bottles, and some of their fragrances are great as well. This one, to me, it's the oud rose combo, but it's definitely sweetened up, which makes for the oud less animalic, more tolerable to wear and things like that. It has oud, Bulgarian rose, vanilla, amber, cashmere, musk, pink pepper, and bergamot for a really delicious combination of oud and rose and vanilla and amber together. For some reason, some of the fragrances of this house are pretty potent. This one seems a bit subdued, and that's why I've ranked it a little lower than normal. But I like the combination of the oud and rose in here. It's definitely wearable, and the addition of the vanilla and amber to give you more of a vanillic amber sweetness again against the rose and the oud is quite delicious. You should definitely check it out. It's a fragrance house called ADAMO Parfum. It's numero 4, or number 4. Really wonderful offering from that house. If you haven't discovered that house, hopefully you guys will. I'll hopefully do a video on that house, the overview of the entire collection of fragrances from that house very soon. So stick around for that. We do have a designer in this list. I've forgotten that we have this designer. This is from the house of Givenchy. It's Noctambule. This has become my favorite in this collection of, I think it's called La Collection Particulière. Are you guys familiar with Givenchy's higher end collection of fragrances? Definitely one of the best here, Noctambule, and it's a rose oud combo. You do have that cumin spiciness in here as well. There's a papyrus Cypriol note that comes in here as well, along with the spicy pink pepper. It wears really, really great. Super, super sexy. Very, very spicy. Cumin sweatiness is definitely prominent, but it's a very dry fragrance. There's no ambery, syrupy, sticky sweetness in here. It's mostly a savory fragrance. The only sweetness we get is from the rose, and it's beautifully balanced against the agarwood, the cumin, papyrus, and the pink pepper. It's a spice bomb, I would say, but a rosy spice bomb. And oudy. And the oud is not animalic to me. What you're getting with is the animalic, whatever animalics you would get with cumin. And for me, cumin is not necessarily an animalic note. It just comes off sweaty and a bit stinky maybe. A lot of people associate it with body odor, but this is super, super sexy in this. The oud, the rose, the cumin together, playing wonderfully. Sexy, sexy fragrance. This is Givenchy Noctambule. Check it out if you don't know it. And I think a lot of the oud and rose combo fragrances in this video do have a bit of that cumin spice. So if you're turned off by it, be warned, check them out, test them before you end up with a full bottle, especially if you're very sensitive to cumin and you don't like that note. But moving on to a house called Lumari, it's Saya or Saja, this one right here. This is a really beautiful bottle from this house, and also the color of this bottle is just gorgeous. Blood, deep dark blood red. Once again, we've got an oud rose combo, very Middle Eastern style here, with a little bit of fruitiness thrown in as well, which I quite like. I like the fruitiness in this. Once again, it tones down the oud's funkiness, if there is any like animalics or any kind of funky smelling, you know, accords coming off the oud. That raspberry note really does soften up the fragrance, which I quite like. But this is a lot of oud and rose along with saffron to give you that kind of fabric like leather smell, saffron, suede leather kind of experience here with the raspberry, patchouli, amberwood, incense, pink pepper, pear, and violet. Violet does have a candy-like quality here. It's a bit fruity, and against the pear, which does have fruitiness, but it's not necessarily like uber fruity like pineapple or apples or something, adds a really nice contrast, a very soft contrast to the very strong notes of oud and rose and saffron and patchouli and amberwood and things like that. Really great fragrance created by Amélie Bourgeois, who I've been speaking quite a bit about. This is a great release from the house of Lumari, Saja or Saya. Check that out if you don't know it. The next fragrance, going to the house of Xerjoff. It's Astaral, this one right here. This is a fairly recent launch from this house, and it's the old Chemi collection that moved into the regular Xerjoff collection, and I believe this is one of the new ones in that sub-collection. As you can see, the bottle has this beautiful cap, and the name is right in front right there. So Astaral, once again, rose oud combo. This is moss or oak moss with rose, shamama accord, rose, oud, labdanum absolute, amberwood, violet, anise, and amber. Once again with this one, it's a very dry oud fragrance, and I do pick up a little bit of spice from something cuminy in here, especially when it mixes with my skin. When I spray it on there, I can feel the dryness. It's very dry, dusty, woody, and the rose is adding a bit of sweet syrupiness in there to enhance the fragrance, to give it the sweetness against mostly the dry notes. But it wears really, really gorgeous. It's once again a very, very sexy, because I do pick up a little bit of that sweaty cumin-like note in here. Again, it's not credited, but I do pick it up on skin, and it wears really, really beautifully. I personally think this fragrance is an autumn fragrance. It's just the right amount of strength between the summer season and the winter season, when in the winter you want really something potent, which this one to me doesn't come off like, and in the summertime it might be a bit too much, but it just smells really great in the autumn season when it's a bit warm and a bit cool at the same time outside, and the dryness of this fragrance with that sweet syrupy rose in it, super sexy. So this is Astaral from the house of Xerjoff. check that fragrance out if you haven't already. So this one's going to be a surprise. I haven't ever spoken about this one. I recently discovered it and I had to have it bottle. It's really great. I'm going to a house called Jo Malone, which not a lot of you probably are fans of, but I wanted to highlight this one because it smells super fantastic. It's basically called Rose and White Musk Absolute, but it does feature oud. It's a very wearable oud. It's mostly about the rose and the white musk, but the oud does come in. It's actually rose water here and damask rose. And then with the white musk, there's also some ambery touches. Oh man, it smells so delicious. The rose in here, or the two types of rose, does have a watery effect. It does say rose water for the notes, but I am picking up something like dewy, rained on roses in here. Against the oud's funk, whatever funk there is in here, it's not too funky to begin with. And the musk and the amber, super delicious. And it's a great fragrance. It's easy to wear. It's a juicy, jammy, also wet, dewy rose. Absolutely fantastic fragrance. I can't believe how great it is. And it's just like I said, it's oud rose. Sometimes it can be challenging with some of the fragrances I'm recommending today, but with this one it's very easy to wear. You can spritz it on and move on. The other thing about this one is if you need to intensify an oud rose fragrance you have, this can be a great boosting tool because it doesn't wear super heavy and dense and complex. Wear the dense one, let that dry, spritz this on top, so not only you can enhance the other fragrance. For example, DEJAN from OMANLUXURY. It doesn't have a lot of rose. Spritz this on, let that dry, spritz this on, and then enhance it with a further rosiness of this. Super delicious. But either way, check this one out. It's Jo Malone's Rose and White Musk Absolute. I think it's a great fragrance, easy to wear fragrance. Definitely one to highlight. This next fragrance is a fragrance that just recently launched from the House of Ormond Jane. It's Arabesque. This was also featured in my Scent Club Mystery Box number 2 recently. Man, I can't believe how great this fragrance is. It smells super amazing. And I think it's because it's got a lot of patchouli in it. And I love patchouli in fragrances. This note is super sexy and this fragrance is really sexy. It's patchouli, musk, moss, oud, jasmine, rose, black pepper, bergamot, saffron, blackcurrant. There's a leatheriness in here from the saffron. There's a light fruitiness in here as well. Lots of spices, earthy patchouli. The rose is dry, a little jammy, not overly syrupy. But then of course some floral touches, musk and patchouli. The combination is so intoxicating. It wears super delicious, and I think what they've done here is because it's amplifying that like really prominent patchouli and musk note in here along with the moss. Absolutely amazing. The oud and the rose are not the most prominent notes in this. They're there to help it along, and I think that's what I like about this one. It's really great. Whereas oud and rose, I've been saying it can get a bit boring because there's too much out there. Since this one is highlighting the patchouli, musk, and the moss, it makes for a really great inviting patchouli rose combo fragrance. So Arabesque is a great fragrance from the House of Ormond Jane. Those of you got the mystery box, did you enjoy that one? Do let me know. Put a comment down below so I can find out. Moving on to the House of Fragrance du Bois, it's Parisian. Oh my god, this is really great. A compliment getter for me for sure, and absolutely love the way this smells. It does have great longevity. It's once again oud and rose combo. It's a bit spicy and for sure ambery. The oud and the incense in here together with cardamom, it's a fresh spice, a bit soapy, pungent spice along with the rose. It creates for a dry fragrance experience. There's also oak moss in here and labdanum in the base to give you that kind of amber woody characteristic. But in the end, the oud is in the base too, so it's very much about very oudy, woody presence, but along the way, lots of rose and spices and amber as well. Super delicious. Parisian from the House of... It's Fragrance du Bois. I'm drawing a blank there for a minute. But moving on to the House of Electimus London, we're ending it here at number 1 with Octavian. I absolutely love this fragrance from this house. And it is a really to die for fragrance, especially if you're a fan of something like Portrait of a Lady and also The Night from the House of Frederic Malle. To me, I feel like this is kind of taking those two fragrances and also combining it with like the typical oud rose combo fragrance out there, fragrances like black oud, gold rose oud, oud silk mood, and creating a new fragrance. Really love Portrait of a Lady, also really love The Night, and I also really enjoyed when I was really enjoying black oud, gold rose oud, oud silk mood. So basically what they've given us is the combination of these fragrances together. I do enjoy The Night, not as much as Portrait of a Lady. Love Portrait of a Lady and do enjoy things like gold rose oud and black oud, and this is what you get with this one. The only other thing that's different here is there's a bit of cumin for sure. And the cumin might be, like I said, turn off some people, but in here it's super sexy. I really love it. So Octavian is definitely one of my favorites from Electimus London and deserves to be the #1 fragrance here on this list. So this is Octavian. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 3 fragrances that have been staples in my collection that are combining rose and oud together. This is first Gold Rose Oud from the house of Tiziana Terenzi. It's, you know, the same kind of style of fragrance, combining all those, you know, notes of oud, rose, and then this one also has patchouli. There's a fir note, sand, black pepper, honey, musk, amber, and sandalwood. It's really super potent, extrait de parfum fragrance, super sexy. The rose is really great in here. Not necessarily juicy, syrupy, and molassesy, more on the dry side, but a nice balance of rose and also oud. And then patchouli. The patchouli is the king here, and it helps the fragrance along. Move it along, you know? Don't get stuck at just the rose and the oud. Give it some more depth with the patchouli, this earthy sexiness, and that's what you get here. This is a great fragrance from the house of Tiziana Terenzi. It's Gold Rose Oud. And then, of course, Montale's Black Oud, kind of similar in idea. It's rose, oud, patchouli, musk, and labdanum with mandarin oranges to give you some fresh, sweet, citrusy touches. But in the end, once again, it's about the rose and the oud and the patchouli here. And it's fantastic. It's super delicious here. And I like it, once again, if you add the patchouli to the mix of the rose and oud, it gives it more depth, it moves the fragrance along, doesn't get stuck at just the rose and the oud, and it makes for a more interesting wear. And again, black oud is super amazing, really love it, and definitely wanted to highlight it for you guys. So Montale's Black Oud. And then last but not least, it's Maison Francis Kurkdjian's Oud Silk Mood, this one right here. And again, same thing, patchouli, rose, oud. This one also features some chamomile note, but it kind of gives you a bit of grassy, mineral-y kind of a characteristic against the patchouli, rose, and oud. And I think if I want to experience rose and oud, I need to have the patchouli in there, to, like I said, to move it along, to don't get stuck at just rose and oud, because it does something to this combo that is very intoxicating and super delicious, and definitely one of the best here. So it's Maison Francis Kurkdjian Oud Silk Mood, and that's the last fragrance for you guys in today's video. What are your thoughts on these fragrances? Are you a fan of some of these fragrances? You probably know the last 3 fragrances. Those were not in the ranking, but what about the ones that were ranked here? Do you know any of them? Are you a fan? And what else is out there that's fairly new that I haven't spoken about on the channel that I should look into? Do let me know. Put a comment down below so I can find out. But either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. And as promised, I have 3 bonus options for you here. First of which is Egner's #1 Oud right here. Fairly inexpensive oud rose fragrance with oud and rose, of course. Cashmere, leather, saffron, violet, jasmine, cinnamon. I wanted the rose in this one to be super jammy. It's not necessarily, it's more dry. And with all the other notes that are in here, it makes for a dry wearing experience. I thought the rose would be a little more potent as well. It's not. But if you like some light rosy touches against oud and, you know, cashmere, woods and musk and leather and things like that, definitely check this one out. It's Egner's #1 Oud. The next one is Frank Olivier's Oud Vanille for a sweeter take on oud and rose, and this one has oud and vanilla plus rose, so it's vanilla, woody notes, incense, rose, patchouli, caramel, spices, raspberry, musk. I like the fruitiness, I like the sticky, syrupy sweetness in here. The vanilla, the rose, the oud together makes for a very easy wear and super delicious and very budget as well. This one's probably around 30 bucks. So Oud Vanille from the house of Frank Olivier. Check that out. Last but not least, it doesn't mention there's oud in here. I do get a bit of a Western oud-like effect in this one. It's Angel Schlesser's Sublime Rose, which basically is rose, saffron, and cypress note. Very easy to wear. It is a bit of a oudy funk in here, probably coming from the combination of the saffron and the cypress together to give you a little bit of a woody, leathery characteristic that kind of, you know, is reminiscent of something oud-like. But in the end, if you don't like the idea of oud, but you like the idea of saffron and cypress with rose, a bit of a Middle Eastern edge to it, and also on the budget side, definitely check out Angel Schlesser's Sublime Rose. And that's pretty much it for you today in this video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for another video very soon. Bye-bye.